Husbands, what is God's expectation? Written by Gary Thomas. Husbands never make their wife's life bitter. Colossians chapter 3, verse 19 says, "Husbands, love your wives and never treat them harshly." The word love is in present tense, meaning unceasing and ongoing action, while the language for treating your wife harshly is in the aorist tense, meaning a one-time occurrence. In this context, that means when it comes to a husband being harsh with his wife, Paul's policy is not even once. You don't get to treat your wife harshly when you're tired, frustrated, or it's at the end of a long day, and you're not getting what you want out of life or marriage. A paraphrase for Paul's advice to husbands would be, always love, never be harsh. Another translation for harsh, by the way, is anything that makes her life bitter. If I believe the Bible, I should never do anything that makes my wife's life bitter. If leaving clothes all over the house bothers her, I should pick them up. If a tone of voice makes her feel talked down to, I must stop using that tone of voice. And of course, this verse absolutely rejects any notion of physical harm, verbal abuse, or even threats. A biblical husband always loves and is never harsh. Husbands provide for their family. 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8 says, "But if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever." Like lazy husbands who play video games at home while their wives work 2 jobs. They're not biblical husbands. I understand the desire men have to pursue their dreams vocationally. I don't think this verse objects to a wife working full-time while her husband is in school. That's preparing to provide, and it's work, even though you may not be getting paid for it. This admonition also doesn't negate the wife also working, especially since Proverbs 31 refers to an income-earning wife. It does negate the thought of a husband who is able to work not working out of selfishness or laziness. This verse challenged me when I was a young husband, desperate to become a writer, and married a woman who was desperate to be a full-time stay-at-home mom. I had to work a full-time job and for a spell another part-time job added on for 15 years, and write on the side before I could write full-time, which is partly what turned me into an early morning person. It was the only time I could pursue my dream. So men, I get wanting to pursue a dream. It's the story of my life. I don't get making your wife and children suffer so you can pursue your dream. Wanting to be a biblical husband, I didn't see that as an option. A biblical husband works hard to provide for his family. Husbands treat their wife with respect. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7 tells me that if I don't respect my wife, God won't hear my prayers. Husbands, in the same way, be considerate as you live with your wives, and treat them with respect, so that nothing will hinder your prayers. It's therefore impossible for me to imagine that I could be a Christian in good standing if I fail to respect my wife. Respect begins with my language. I'm never to be condescending, nor hurtful, nor threatening. Respect includes making life choices with my wife's welfare at the top of my concern. Respect means I also listen to her, value her opinion, and don't talk her down to others. Respect doesn't mean I always agree with her or always do what she wants me to do, but it also means I don't expect her to always agree with me or always do what I want her to do. A biblical husband respects his wife. Husbands take initiative. Male chauvinism and domineering control have been a problem for all of human history. But in society's attempt to dismantle this sin, the opposite sin, male passivity, often gets overlooked. That's the devil's trap. If he knows he's losing his grip on tempting the church with one sin, he'll try to get the church to fall headfirst into the opposite sin. Truth isn't found by reacting to evil. It's found by responding to Christ and his word. If you take the Bible seriously, a husband's love is an initiating love. When the Bible tells men to love their wives like Christ loves the church, it's calling us to an initiating, reaching out love. Christ adopted the breathtaking plan of becoming flesh to get his message across to us. A bold, audacious, and one-sided move. He willingly laid down his life to deal with our sin when we didn't deserve it. He is the most active figure in history, and he continues to be so when he says, I will build my church. He hasn't built, but is building his church. A biblical husband is an active husband, expending much energy and thought over how to build up his wife. He's not primarily thinking about how or whether she's serving him. He's focused on what he can do for her. A biblical husband is an initiating husband. Husbands speak life to their wife. Proverbs warns us, the tongue has the power of life and death. We husbands are therefore called to choose every word, every single one, carefully. I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give account for every careless word they speak. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. This includes words when we're tired, angry, frustrated, hurt, or disappointed. The Bible moves us to make every word breathe life into our wives and marriages. A biblical husband uses his tongue to nurture, never to hurt. Husbands value their wife's sexual pleasure and needs. Our bodies aren't just our own. On the day we get married, they also belong to our wives, which means we need to preserve a brain that values her beauty, which enjoins us to resist comparing our wives to pornographic images or other women walking down the street. It means when we make love, we put her pleasure at the center of every experience, and that we preserve enough energy to be able to engage in sexual relations. It means we spend time and thought thinking up how to please her. It also means we try to take care of our own bodies, since they're the only ones our wives are biblically allowed to make love to. Offering a body and brain that's broken down due to neglect or indulgence, I'm not talking about age or disease here, is like feasting at a restaurant and giving our wives the option of licking the plate. That's not generous. It's gross. A biblical husband disciplines himself and works to please his wife sexually. Husbands love their wife out of reverence for God. 1 John 3, 1 and Ephesians 5. One are key Bible verses declaring that we are God's children, which means my wife is God's daughter. She will never not be God's daughter. So I will have a lifelong motivation to love her and be faithful to her, simply because I owe her Heavenly Father more than I could ever even begin to repay. This biblical truth has been a mainstay of my marital devotion from the time God first hit me over the head with it when he convicted me, probably 25 years ago now, about how lousy of a husband I was being. Lisa isn't just your wife. She's my daughter. And I expect you to treat her accordingly. Having my own children, and knowing how desperately I want them to be well loved, even though I know they aren't perfect, gives me just a glimpse of God's desire for me to love his daughter, my wife, and how much I can please him by loving her well. A biblical husband loves his wife because she is, first and foremost, God's daughter. Husbands honor their wife more than she honors him. When I got married, I foolishly kept a scorecard, wondering if my wife would treat me as well as I was trying to treat her. That is 180 degrees different from the attitude the Bible calls me to have when Paul writes, "Outdo one another in showing honor." Romans 12:10. According to Paul, at the end of the day, my goal should be that I honor my wife more than she honors me. This means I focus more on what I'm called to do than on what she is called to do. A biblical husband focuses more on loving his wife well than on evaluating whether he is being treated well. Husbands are committed to their wife for life in a covenantal relationship. When Jesus does talk about a marriage, he makes it clear that I get one choice, and I am to be covenantally, not just contractually, committed to that choice for the rest of my life, until either one of us dies. I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, and marries another woman commits adultery. Matthew 19:9. If I want to honor Jesus, I can't end my marriage because I'm not satisfied or happy or think I made my choice too hastily. Only my wife can give me grounds for divorce. If she's not unfaithful to me, my call is to work it out. If she abandons me or is unfaithful to me, that's not something I'm doing. That's something she's doing. She's breaking the covenant, not me. But for my part, I am to accept that this is my one and likely only marriage, so I should nurture it, grow it, build it, and enjoy it. There won't be a second chance, not that I would want one. Husbands, love. Biblical love isn't sentimental or emotional. It's gritty and specific. Just look at 1 Corinthians 13:4 and following. Love is patient. Men, are we patient with our wives? Love is kind. Guys, when's the last time you've done something for your wife out of sheer kindness and not to get something back? Love isn't proud. Men, do we exalt ourselves over our wives or act like servants? Love doesn't dishonor others. Men, how do we talk about our wives when we're not with them? Love isn't self-seeking. Men, are we more focused on what we're getting out of marriage than what we're giving? Love isn't easily angered. Men, do our wives feel safe and cherished in our gentle love? Love keeps no record of wrongs. Hey guys, do we shove our wives' past mistakes and sins back at them during an argument? Love does not delight in evil. Guys, do we entice our wives to join us in sin? Love always protects. Guys, do we endanger our wives' health, energy, joy, and peace for our own selfish pursuits and pleasures? Love always perseveres. Gentlemen, are we committed to hanging in there, refusing to even utter the word divorce? A biblical husband loves his wife the way the Bible defines love. These verses sidestep the complementarian, egalitarian divide. Whatever those verses mean, all of the above apply to every husband and every marriage. If I ever master these 10 passages, maybe I'll have time to wax eloquently on the ones so many others seem so obsessed about arguing over. Until then, I've got my hands full with what God clearly asks of me as a husband. And I hope every spiritually alive husband reading this will feel the same. P.S. For the men who say it's not fair that I'm focusing on just the husbands here, let me remind you that I wrote an entire book for women loving him well, practical advice on influencing your husband. Publishers aren't too excited about publishing books with men as the primary audience. So I'm slipping a bit of what I'd say in a book to men into this video. Plus, I like the biblical reminders about how we men are supposed to behave towards our wives. We men need them to stay the course.